Thank you. Welcome all to this session on the gainful employment area. We have got three very good experts who will enlighten us on the problems which they are facing in interfacing with the corporations. I'd just like to say a few words of the company's role in this area. A lot of it has already been said, and I think some of the points which I'd like to make therefore are slightly different in terms of what some of the practices companies can follow. The main point which has come out is the low acceptance of the vocational skilled interns and students by the companies in society generally, and as well as the whole area of mismatch between supply and demand. So I think the very first task which companies and corporations need to do in this regard is the essential area of surveying to get over this mismatch problem. This has been addressed to earlier. I'm just repeating some of these points as by way of a checklist. The apprenticeship and the trainers coming into the company fold need to be properly treated. And that's the area of mobilization of such people, whichever the strata they come from, need to be carefully understood. And the contribution of HR in this area, I think, is critical. Some hints which I think are relevant, particularly those of us who are belonging to companies as well as service providers, is the fact that once the intern is in the company, he should be treated like a normal employee, whether it's a status, whether it's the grade, whether it's the salary expectations and the job assigned to them. So he is part of the process of training as an integral person, and he also owns the very training which the company is imparting it to give. And this behoves on the HR and the CSR practitioners to see that this atmosphere is created. Also, in terms of productivity of such interns, if the whole arrangement of skill development is done along with the labor unions, the management and the normal employees, then also I think that circle will get complete and there will be fruitful training which will be provided, which ensures the company's own productivity. Quite often this is an area of concern because the company say the cost goes up and how can we do all this work. But I think in the long run such an approach would help rather than hinder the development process. In the other area of training, we have heard that the companies should provide the curricula which is contemporary. While I agree with that in terms of the latest and the more high advanced techniques are concerned, the point made by the previous speaker that the appropriate technology has got to be employed, so that the idea of gainful employment is not only elitist or advanced skills but also percolates down to the lower strata of society. And that's where we are told is the potential for employment and the problem which we have to solve together. So I think that's a very relevant point for us to consider. The other area is, of course, the working together with the government. Now that the new ministry has been formed in this regard, some of the suggestions which I think we would like to make through this conference would be that the credit guarantee fund would be available to the companies to utilize to provide for loan and funding facilities for the students, particularly those who are the low income group, so that they can get the advantage of training as well as employment in the companies. An area where insurance companies can help, I think, is that they can issue a policy which would protect default of loan repayments by the trainees. The premium could be paid by the companies such that this would encourage greater participation by the students and particularly in the rural areas. The third suggestion I have is with the companies to collaborate with NGOs and social businesses, particularly in areas where the NGOs and the social businesses have a community presence and linkages with local government bodies and panchayats. For instance, I am concerned with a rural development NGO and an education society in a backward area, and we face this problem, and the industry was come to us to say we need the boys. So we held a meeting with 50 panchayat mukhis or presidents and made them aware of what type of skills are required, what is their job, and how can we as the NGO and social business help in providing this opening. This was very well appreciated, and the companies concerned also said this was a good way of getting together the acceptance of the vocal skills in the society at large. The issue of scholarship also is quite relevant. Many companies have got their own foundations or scholarship assistance or charitable societies as vehicles. So if this can be used as a special business unit under Section 8 of the New Companies Act, which also has mandated CSR spend, I think this could again be a useful contribution which the companies can make towards this area of gainful employment. The other suggestions which have already been covered, I'm not going through those, but these are some of the other ideas which I think are relevant for this purpose that we are talking about. I would now like to request, if I start from my ladies first, Mrs. Chakravarti to give her presentation in this area. Each one of them will give a presentation, and then we will have question and answers. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. India's painful reality is that we've got 300 million kids who will never sit in the car that they drive or live in the house that they help build or ever read the newspaper they deliver. And it represents also India's classic chicken and the egg problem. However, the challenge that lies ahead of us is not only just about the opportunities for the million kids who are going to get added to the workforce every month for the next 20 years. It also involves innovations around actually moving the 300 million adult workers to higher productivity. And such innovations must look at the 4 geographies of work. Enterprise geography of work. Out of the 58 million companies, enterprises in India, only 9 lakh are registered. Only 45,000 of them are posting a job on any given day on any of the job sites. Only 15,000 of them are actually doing so on a recurring basis. We've got only 12,000 companies in this country with a paid-up capital over 12 crores. 84% of our manufacturings are happening in companies which employ less than 50 people. Now for a minute, I'm not suggesting that being small is bad, but being small by choice or by compulsion on account of the regulatory cholesterol is definitely bad. It's a complete deathbed for entrepreneurs who are seeking scale. And hence, we have to figure out a way by which we can make it easy to do business in this country, build access to non-collateral capital, and of course create a healthy financial and regulatory regime. Physical geography of work. So should we take people to jobs or jobs to people? Now, it has become practically impossible over the last few years to get any more people to fit into Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore. And even if we could by building satellites like Gurgaon, Gachibowli, Navi Mumbai, Whitefield, is it possible to get each of those 300 million people to be able to make the shift? So what happens to them? India has got just 50 cities. China has got 350 cities. And hence it's not much of a surprise that recently when 350 million Chinese workers went home for Chinese New Year, 25 million didn't return. Hence we need to get those 100 smart cities quickly. Sectoral geography of work. 12% manufacturing employment is an MSS. Agriculture is not a solution because of low productivity. Do you know 240 million Indians actually produce food grains equal to what 4 million Americans do? And we can, if you look at it, we can change all of it by actually making it a little more easier, a little more smooth to set up shop in India, by creating an environment which attracts investments. What started as China's promise of great infrastructure and low wages actually resulted in increasing their wage levels. 10 years back, Chinese wages were 5% of the US wages. Today, it's 20%. And of course, our education geography of work, when we talk about it, we need to acknowledge the three realities. Number one, many of you may not realize this, but actually every year 265 lakh kids take the class 10th exam. 105 lakhs fail. Out of the 160 who pass and take the class 12th exam, 80 lakh fail. Out of the 80 lakh who pass, only 50 lakh goes to college. Number two, colleges are not what it used to be, right? Very soon we would hear about 100% mark cutoffs for admissions. Now, Korea today has 60% of the cab drivers there have a college degree. It used to be 5% in 1970. 32% of the retail attendants in US today have a college degree. It used to be 1% in 1970. And nowadays in India, 15% of our security guards have a college degree. And finally, India has got just 3 lakh apprentices. Germany has got 4 million. Japan has got 10 million. China has got 20 million. And that too out of our overall capacity of 4 lakh apprentices in the country. Now, in light of today's discussion, I'd like to draw your attention and draw focus onto 4 innovations which will work. Teamly Skill University. A few years back, we approached the UGC to set up India's first vocational university. They promptly showed us the door, saying, "Are you guys mad? How can a university be vocational?" Well, it must be, especially in a country like India. And what makes Teamly Skill University different from any other university are 3 things. We pray to one God, jobs, academic modularity, and we offer blended learning through a combination of classroom, distance education, cloud, and of course on-the-job training. Apprentices. At this point of time, India needs at least 20 million apprentices. And of course, the recent amendments that have happened in the Apprenticeship Act, I'm sure it's going to contribute a bit to that figure. However, we need to encourage multiple public-private partnerships around this, in this particular area, like the one we recently executed after 7 years of extreme hard work to create the world's first PPP apprenticeship program, which is a partnership between the Ministry of Labor, Ministry of HRD, NSDC, CII, and Team Lease. And what it intends to do, it not only takes care of the 14 stifling drawbacks of the erstwhile Apprenticeship Act, but it also creates flexibility, provides inspiration to actually skill millions of kids and provide them with the much needed academic corridor to build their careers. And of course, MOOCs. We need to learn to marry MOOCs with apprentices, especially for all those who are trying to create a winning balance in their career. The freshers, the skilled guys, they've got a theoretical degree, but they don't know what to do with it. Just the way we are doing through Teamly Skill University and NetApp. And also, MOOCs is an effective skilling tool for each and every one of those who are already in the workforce, but they're feeling the pressure of the increasing competitiveness, of the fluctuating economic certainty, unemployment, to keep them employed. And of course, at the same time, the increased availability of broadband, the digital revolution, it has opened up new forms of content, learning, delivery. Cost, scale, and quality has been an impossible trinity in skill development. Ask anyone who's been involved in it and they'll tell you how. We believe vocational university, NetApp, MOOCs, each one of them are actually representing optimal solutions around the 3. And yes, when would this country start celebrating skills? And on this particular aspect, Last year, our annual salary primer, it's a salary benchmarking study, actually revealed that an electrician salary was at par with that of a desktop engineer. And it resulted in a nationwide, extremely publicized debate. The end result, for the first time, maybe, that kids and parents have started believing that being a vocationally trained professional may not be so uncool, and maybe as remunerative, and if not more, than any other, the likes of electricians and doctors and so on and so forth. So, in this relation, I must talk about and acknowledge the great work that has been done by NSDC and the Hunarbaaz campaign, the marketing campaign. It is actually putting skills in the pedestal that it belongs in a country like India, where 90%, as per the NOC data, 90% of our job requires skills and they don't need knowledge. And of course, this is the kind of celebration of skills which creates the much needed signaling value for all of us for vocational training, to opt for vocational training. And lastly, the Ministry of Skills was a masterstroke. The government has been forever organized vertically, while our problems around jobs and skills have been horizontal. And hence, creating Ministry of Skills as a horizontal is a brave move, provided it gets the much needed financial as well as regulatory support. In conclusion, there is possibly nothing worse than our children losing their future. It's not losing an election or losing 722 points in the Sensex. It's far worse. But we can change all of that by constantly innovating at the intersection of education, employment, employability, and education. And what it requires is not more cooks in the kitchen, just a different recipe. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Ms. Shweta Mehta, please.
Thank you, Mr. Kilachand, and all of you for giving me an opportunity to speak on a topic I feel very strongly about. Although I must admit my views may be a little different from most of the speakers here, because I bring a different perspective. And my learnings, experiences have been very different. To give you an idea, let me just quickly take you through what it is that Yuva Parivartan, the organization I represent, has been doing over the last few years. This is our vision. We are looking at creating opportunities for school dropouts and deprived youth to help lead productive and useful lives. As my fellow panelist, just a moment, what's happening? Is there an issue? It's okay, I can do it without the presentation. I like the pictures at least. Can you do it? Okay. So while they're fixing that, I think we've already talked about technology. Sometimes it lets us down, so let's carry on. Good, what is that, old brains and all that India has so much in abundance. Right. Sorry? Well, one of the points I do raise is how do we define skills? That's okay. So basically, Yuva Parivartan, the NGO that I work with, has made its vision and mission to work with youth who drop out of school. As my fellow panelist has already pointed out, quite a few people don't make it beyond the 10th standard. But what is not so commonly known is that a lot of people drop out even earlier. So more than 80% of Indian youth have actually not completed schooling, what we define as 10th standard. And Yuva Parivartan is an old NGO with rich history, very impeccable credentials. If I had the PPT, I'd show you all of that. But we have focused in this area to provide livelihoods training and help link these youth to jobs or any form of gainful employment. The reason I'm saying this is because later on I will actually question what is gainful employment. So the point is, we started out in one center in Bandra, and because the need of the country is so great, we have over the years grown to cover, today we train over 100,000 youth across 18 states, and we do it through different formats. We have our own centers where we provide the conventional form of training where students come in for 3 months, we train them, and then they go back and do some on-job training and get some form of livelihoods. We also realized a while back that 60%, more than 50-60% of this country is in the villages. Centers and conventional training methods do not work over there. Can you just attach the PPT? I'll change it from you. This is So we started a new format which enables us to reach out to areas which are very difficult to reach out to in the rural areas, tribal areas, terrorist-ridden areas, wherein we have what are called rural mobile camps, and our trainers actually go into the villages, into small areas and create training facilities. I know a lot of sector skill councils and training partners may say, how will you do that? But the reality is there is no other access to these people. If I don't take the training to them, they are never going to get any training. So we have created different formats which are innovative, and we have started working in, as I mentioned, 18 states in the country. Hopefully it will be 18 countries soon as well. Now some of the challenges that we have faced. Okay, so as I was saying, these are our impeccable credentials and the rich history. I've covered some of this. This also talks of some of the awards we have received along the way. This talks of how ambitiously we plan to grow up and reach out to much larger numbers. As I was mentioning, we work in a lot of areas which are very, very difficult to work in. And the reason we have been able to go there is because of our innovative training delivery methods. These are some of the challenges that we have faced, where there's no infrastructure, there is very little education for the students. They are very, very far and sparsely spread out and remote areas. And the most important one, there are no job opportunities in that area. Just to show you these are some of the camps and the training facilities we have run. This is in Jammu and Kashmir. That is a motor mechanic and a domestic wireman course. You can see how happily and eagerly they are learning over there. The pride with which they are accepting their certificates is probably as much as any IIM or IIT alumni, you know. Now this is the real Bharat or the real India. I must thank Mr. Gogre for introducing the idea which so far had not been touched upon. But really, this is the paradox about skilling in India. We're talking of 80% of the youth who have not completed school, and yet most of our government programs, a lot of corporate funded programs are still focusing on youth who have completed 10th, 12th, graduates, whatever. I'm not saying that they are not in need of this, but the fact is there is a much larger audience which we are not addressing or we are not looking to. The other difference I have is where, you know, most programs require people to be placed in organized sector jobs or organized industry. But the reality is, and this is according to an NSDC report, 92% of the jobs in this country are in the unorganized sector. So I do not know how we are going to place all these children in the organized sector. 50% of our students, I know, in fact 60-70 take to self-employment, and yet that is something which very few corporates or government programs accept as a gainful employment. So my question is, do we need to relook at how we define this question put to us, providing gainful employment to skilled workforce? My first question is the skilled part of it. How do we define skilling? To some extent, this has already been discussed in the earlier panel about, you know, what is skills and how relevant are they. I'd just like to make a small point here. Saying skills are often defined by number of hours, number of months, but frankly, that has nothing to do with how they will translate into a livelihood. We have, for instance, an apple sorting and packing course. Nobody would accept this as a skilled course, but it meant a boy who was earning 100 rupees a day was now earning 300 rupees a day. So that is a skill which he has learned, and that has improved his life. Once he has 300 rupees, he will be motivated to go out and do something more, and we've actually moved the track of his future. How is he looking at it? How is he moving ahead? The other thing is a computer course. Not too many people would accept it as a livelihood or a vocational course. But if you combine it with some kind of typing practice or Marathi typing or Hindi typing, there is a lot of potential, because with the government opening up this thing for computerization, there are a lot of jobs at small levels, small employment which they can pick up. So my point is, skill should be defined by the relevance and by the connection that is made. We have run courses which are tie and dye, handicraft courses, but simply because we were able to give them a market linkage, they became relevant, and to my mind, they became skill courses which help get gainful employment. So let me question the second part of it. What do we mean by gainful employment? Gainful employment is something which sounds good. We all look for, jobs in organized sector industry. It's a great aspiration, but the reality is this is not going to work out. There are not enough jobs. Even the ones which are available are largely in the bigger sectors. I agree we need to open many smaller centers where there will be opportunities available for gainful employment. I won't say gainful, but employment. But until that happens, we have to look at other ways of doing things, especially given that a lot of the youth that we have trained, or even the youth in the country, have aspirations which are very different from those provided by the jobs. We have jobs opening up as plumbers, and everybody you speak to say, oh, there is a big demand for plumbers. But nobody wants to be a plumber. So there's a huge mismatch over there. Second thing is, in the rural areas, it's difficult for people to, actually move to areas. Apart from the fact that they don't want to leave their family, it's financially impossible for them to do that. So the point is that, is a gainful employment equivalent to a job in a corporate sector or a big company? I would say no. Gainful employment is anything which enables somebody to earn a livelihood and live in self-respect. We talked of entrepreneurship, we talk of self-employment, and there are many opportunities. The government has identified this, that it's important. However, the problem with this is that there is no market linkage. We find that people who are doing their own business are often not able to get some markets ready. Therefore, what we have done as an organization is tied up with the sort of played an in-between role between manufacturers and the remote workforce, as we call it. It is a trained workforce, but it is remote. They are working from home, and they take things on a piece order or a job order basis, and that's how they earn a livelihood. We create the linkage. Hence, we've piloted this, some of them we are seeing here, and we've met with quite some success. The only point I'm making here is that we need to organize. Okay. The point is that we have a lot of opportunities which are available. We have a lot of ways in which we can work. A lot of innovations are being made. But the government, the corporates, need to open up the definition of what is skilled and what is gainful employment. I think that is really the only way we can actually be able to, as a country, achieve the potential that we have. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. Mr. Srinivas.
Good afternoon and good evening to all of you. Let me at the outset thank Bijay for inviting me for this very meaningful and stimulating interaction on skill development. I've been hearing the sessions ever since I came in the afternoon, and a lot of ground has been covered very effectively on the scale and size of the problem, the quality issues, the macro picture, the role of NSDC. So I don't want to repeat that, What I'll do is I decided when I was listening to Shivani, I think there is a need to share an experience of having done skill development for employability successfully and connected it with communities. Because in the time that is given to me, that's 10 minutes. I'm acutely aware of the fact that I have only 9 more minutes to go. So I'll share an experience. So way back in 1989, I was General Manager Human Resources with Taj Group of Hotels in Southern Region. We were hiring students from catering institutes and food crafts institutes for different positions in our industry. We noticed there is a significant gap between what we required and what is being taught in the college. Then immediately, those days I used to have a boss called one Mr. Mahesh, who was very, very fond of macro picture understanding and what is the problem in the country kind of questions he would ask us. So we instituted a study with Tata Institute of Social Sciences, and we realized that by and large academia and industry were not well aligned those days. Each one was a free spinning wheel, each one was doing their different set of objectives, rightfully so, and the industry would go and recruit them from these colleges, get them into their organization and start doing training of what they require from the beginning. So in 1990, we established what is called a Campus Connect program with all the catering institutes, and one of our representatives was put on the AICTE equivalent for hotel industry. Those days there was a body, is put on the body to redo the syllabi and curriculum in hotel and catering institutes and food crafts institutes in India. This Campus Connect program included, I'm talking about 25 years ago, it included training faculty in these catering institutes, sending our managers to teach in catering institutes, and we changed the curriculum to include a 6-month orientation in industry. I think very few such technical courses have a 6 months kind of a attest stretch orientation training provided by the industry. In hotel institutes, they do it even today. So we would go and select these students in the colleges. The relationship of this student, his aptitude, his inclination, does he want to make a career in what part of hotel management, all this we will decide in the very first year of his course. We will select him and he gets posted to one of the hotels, and we have training managers in these hotels who will anchor this training systematically. There is a syllabi we created for on-the-job training, curriculum, and based on that curriculum we would provide training in the industry, and even today some of the general managers in several hotel chains, Oberoi's and Taj and Welcome Group, they remember that as the most effective learning they have ever had during their catering institute education. And bringing this alignment, supporting student creative activities in the institute, and providing sabbaticals for these lecturers in the institutes to come and work in the hotels for 2 months, 1 month, like that. So we built a strong program, a Campus Connect program. Now, while hiring staff for lower positions, we had a different and a unique model. We will go to interior parts of the country. We will identify schools which are known for values, discipline, and higher standards of teaching, training. Small towns, Ratnagiri, Chiplun, Shimoga, Gulbarga, these kind of small towns, and you ask local people which is the school known for discipline and attitude, positive attitude, strong human values, students respect teachers, student attend morning prayers on time, student do their homework and submit it punctually, this kind of discipline issue, and respect elders, respect teachers. So we would hire these kind of boys and girls for values and bring them to a nearby city like a Bombay, Bangalore or Delhi, put them through systematic training to meet international standards, skills training to beat international standards. The trainers themselves are trained internationally in University of Portsmouth or Cornell and such established institutions. So we realized by doing this over a period of time, the productivity standards hugely went up, the level of commitment and service quality enhanced significantly, and we were able to create that unique Taj mystic, that strong customer loyalty foundation was laid by some of these, if I may say, human resource interventions. Hire them for attitude, values, and principles, and train them in domain-specific skills. Now, more recently, we expanded this program by establishing skill development centers in the hotels itself. Taj has about 10 skill certification centers. We tied up with American Hotel Motel Association for the certifications, and we borrowed those certifications because some international flavor will be there in the manner of conducting the assessment and the process of assessment and evaluation. And for plumbing, electrical, refrigeration, air conditioning, mechanics, we brought the best of international standards for assessment and certification into the company. We bring students, like I explained to you, we train them and we certify them. Then I expanded this to the community more recently. We tied up with institutions like ITIs, Pratham, Don Bosco Tech, some of these NGOs and private sector establishments who are doing training, vocational training. And we set up some 40 and odd vocational training institutes in India, which has the potential to be able to train 3,600 youth every year across the country. We developed the curriculum, and we would send our managers from a contiguous nearby hotel. He will go and anchor that. We constitute a committee, and the general manager of the hotel will be the chairman of that committee. Regular visits, faculty coming to the hotels, and the managers of the hotels going and teaching and training and assessing and evaluating the students. So though our requirement was only 1,500 at the lower levels, we trained 3,600. Our objective was to train 10,000 youth, when our requirement will be in the region of 3,000. So we addressed issues of mobilization in interior parts of the country. We defined solutions. We addressed issues of training the trainers. We addressed issues of employability and gainful employment for these for these trained youth. We addressed issues of employment readiness, salary, the whole lot of things that we have been discussing. As a model, we address them with effective solutions. In fact, Taj more recently in the last 4 years has won Global Great Place Award by Gallup International, listed as among the top 20 companies for best customer loyalty and customer engagement and employee engagement. All of you are aware, it is public domain information. It's all published in various business magazines. So some of this could be achieved by those youth we recruited from villages, from Ratnagiri, from, like I said, from Warangal, from Mandi Daboli, these kind of small towns, from Gulbarga, and innocent youth from underprivileged sections of society, and due to agrarian poverty they need a job, they are hired, they have good values, good upbringing. Despite poverty, they practice enormous discipline. So these are the boys and girls we bring, and we train them, and we could achieve what's called world-class and world-beating standards in the journey of the Taj service excellence. So I thought I'll share this. It kind of takes into its fold the issues that have been discussed at a macro level, how an organization can address these issues. And if you have any questions, I'll take it up during the question and answer session. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, any more questions? We've had 3 presentations. Anybody having a question, address it to the person concerned, or he can take it up and he can respond. No questions? Yes.
My question is to Ritu Parna. The first one is, how different is aspiration of a person trained under your scheme, number one. Number two, how secure he or she feels in comparison to all the other applicable laws, used, misused, whatever it is. That's the second question. And my question to Shivani is, whatever work you have done, have you tried or has anybody approached you for scaling up in some other area where they would like to use this kind of your expertise? So these questions.
Okay. I think, I'm assuming you're referring to our apprenticeship scheme which we are running, the PPP1. Inherently, the scheme is designed, and any apprenticeship program which is effective in the world is designed in such a manner that the kids, once they get embedded in the organization, I mean, I've heard discussions about people trying to figure out, are there forecasting tools that one can provide, industry can provide to, let's say, the likes of NSDC so that they can start building for the future. You know, by the time the transmission loss happens from one to the other, the skills that finally people get ready to train have become obsolete, is no more in demand, and that's the reason I think that's a struggle even NSDC is having, where kids are getting placed in jobs that are different from what they got trained in. The beauty of an apprenticeship program is that once you get them into the workplace at a very early stage, they are able to understand the various needs. I mean, one of the reasons that aspiration challenges our kids face, because they really don't know, because we have a very theoretical orientation to the way they get, we impart knowledge at them, that they don't know exactly what are the different kinds of roles and responsibilities. Most of their beliefs about what they want to do is derived through maybe what they see their friends talking about, what they probably see in movies, different other aspects. So what we are trying to do is that get as many kids embedded across the length and breadth of the country within organizations very early on, so that they absorb the skills which are constantly in demand and changing, and hence their ability to be skilled and up to date in their skills is their best security. Honestly, labor laws will hopefully come and go, and different other laws. But having said that, the biggest challenge is our kids do not feel secured because they are not adequately equipped. We are trying to do that. Once we do that, their job, their employability will be their security. Does that answer your question? Okay. Do you have a second question for me? I forgot actually. Sorry, you might have to. Yeah, I guess what happens is that when they are seeing the different kinds of work, they understand what are the different options available for them firsthand, rather than build a picture or vision of it based on their abilities. And hence, they are much more aligned. The gap goes away. So that's what we are trying to do, and I think so far, it's just gone live from June 2014. So far, it looks good. And of course, I should be coming back and reporting different success stories probably. Thank you.
There is time for one more question.
Just one second.
Yeah,
I think
she
there was
has
a
to
question.
respond, and then
I'll just answer it very quickly. Your question, it's on, no? Yeah. If I remember correctly, you asked me if I have been approached by other partners. Yes, in fact, one of the formats we have is a partnership format, where we partner with smaller training institutes or smaller NGOs, provide them the curriculum, train them in how to deliver it, so that they deliver the training and then we do the certification. So we do that. Thank you.
Hello. Hello. Madam, I have one question.
last question over there. Yes.
Since three of you have expressed that you work in the rural area, my question is to you. See, the level of dropout, school dropout in our country is very large, number one. Number two, at each stage of dropout, it may be a 4 standard, maybe 7 standard, maybe 9 standard. Are there some skill building programs where those skilled people will not be influx to city, because otherwise it happens to, there will be an influx of those population in the city and the sprawl of city take place, slums take place. So there itself, because decentralization of availability of opportunities should take place. So what kind of say vision you would like to highlight?
The rural.
What is your specific question in one sentence?
At each stage of dropout, the training, so there itself they will get some employment. So they will not be influx.
Should I drop out from schools or after you hire them when you train them?
Pre-10th.
Pre-10th.
Yeah.
See, in the kind of hiring that's being done for occasional institute, for instance, even at Don Bosco,
yeah, they
take even 5th standard, 6th standard, 8th standard students.
Yes, sir.
One of the CSR centers we are running in Aurangabad, 1,000 youth were being trained, and the enrollment happens for even students who have done their 7th standard, 8th standard, 9th standard. There are a number of institutes that have come up, vocational training institutes across the country, who hire students who are not 10th standard pass today, if that answers your question.
I think there are a number of NGOs which do that. I think rather than address it to corporations, this would be a networking situation between NGOs, social businesses and the community.
Hello. Hello, madam. I have one question for Rituparna madam. In your studies, you say that 250 million Indian farmers are producing the same food grains which the 4 million American farmers are producing. So, is it good for the country, or it is somewhat what you say like that? Means it is not good for the country.
Okay, quick answer to your question. You know, it's an illusion of them being employed. What they're actually doing is hanging out. The job doesn't need 240 million people. In India, people can't afford to be unemployed, so they figure out these different ways of maybe self-employment or others to just hang in there. Honestly, I think we are struggling with low productivity in agriculture. I'm not for a minute saying that agriculture is not important for a country like ours, but we need to make it effective. We need to learn, we need to figure out a way by which we can move jobs from farms to actual workplace, to manufacturing. I think that's the biggest challenge. And that's it. There is, if you believe that 240 million people additionally are required for something that somewhere else in the world 4 million people can do, there's something seriously wrong. That's it. There's no right or wrong in it. That's an illusion of a job. Actually, that's not a job for 240 million people. That's it.
Okay, very formally, this is the last question for this panel.
Mr. Srinivas, this is a question to you. My name is Ramesh Daswani. The work you've done with the Indian hotels is totally impressive. My question is very simple. Currently in the hospitality industry, where do you see a gap, and what's the quantitative gap between the available force we have and the industry demand? Because last 10 years, the hospitality industry has grown many-fold. So has your workforce grown proportionately, or there is a big gap? Thank you.
There is quite a significant gap in the trained people available in the market versus the demand. The demand is increasing in India. I think there is a good 50% and more than 50% kind of gap. And more and more catering institutes are coming up. The biggest gap that we see is there are 500 catering institutes in India who churn out 500 into another 500 kind of numbers, but they are not employment ready, they are not billable. You can't hire them and straight away put them on jobs. We need to put them through a detailed induction which can run between 3 months to 6 months. They should get accustomed to the hotel systems, processes, and also the kind of job that they are expected to do, the responsibility. because hotel industry very peculiarly is a acutely service-focused industry where 78 to 80% of the employees are in touch with customers 24/7, 365 days, creating and delivering a variety of service, thinking on their feet, and to not only meet the expectations of customers, but to exceed the expectations of customers and create delight. So that is the mandate. So, given that situation in the hotel industry, a lot of customer handling training, not only domain-specific skills, customer complaint management, customer service, some of these things are not adequately taught, and the institutions have to do their inductions thoroughly, and we teach them and we get them ready for the jobs. The gap technically is about 50%.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure different models will evolve as the PPP, partnership model is evolving within the country. With that, I thank all the panelists over here, and I invite Mr. Bijay Sahu to present the mementos. To Mr. Kilachan. Mr. H. N. Srinivas. Ms. Shivani Mehta. And Ms. Chakraborty.